What can brand storytellers learn from a movie about living in a van? Spoiler alert! This cut on my head, it's not from an attack with a grizzly bear. I was actually attacked by a low-lying branch while I was cutting the lawn. The lawn looks okay, my head, not so great. But truthfully, in this Wednesday watch, we're going to talk about the movie Nomadland, and I'll be giving away some details. So if you haven't seen it yet, beware. So what can brand storytellers learn from a movie about living in a van? Well, last impressions are as important as first impressions. Yeah, human beings are built to size each other up quickly. It's a matter of survival. First impressions do matter. But the movie Nomadland shows us how last impressions are more important to brand storytelling. When the movie starts, we learn that Fern has lost everything. Her husband, her job, her house, even her town. With nowhere to go and unsure what to do, she sells most of her belongings and buys a van to live in and search for work. If you haven't seen the movie, you may have been turned off to it because you've heard that it's bleak and depressing, and that's partly true. However, it's ultimately optimistic and full of hope, and hope is part of the lesson that the movie teaches us about brand storytelling. I had a professor in film school who said that while our films may hold a mirror up to society and show us all the ills and problems, that by the end he'd still like to see just a glimmer of hope. And what he means by that is he doesn't want it wrapped up like a Hollywood movie, nice and neat with a bow. He just wanted to know that there was the potential for things to get better, and that there was a sense of optimism by the end. Fern understandably has a hard time letting people get close to her. She constantly keeps fellow van lifer Dave at arm's length. However, Fern finally agrees to visit Dave and his family and considers the option of a second chance at a family life. At the end, Fern realizes it's okay to keep carrying her grief. So she sells all of her belongings, visits what's left of her home, and decides to move on. And it's hinted at that she's going to give that second life a chance. In my workshop, we learn about emotional multipliers. The use of them can intensify the emotions of your story. As storytellers, we need to be aware of how we want our audience to feel at the end of the story, regardless of how we felt throughout. We need to know what's the main takeaway, emotionally speaking. In the case of Nomadland, as bleak and hopeless as Fern appeared throughout, the optimism provided by the emotional multiplier changed the way we felt about Fern and her situation. As the movie ended, I felt hope and optimism. That's the main takeaway for me. In your next story, think about the last impression you want to make. What is the main feeling and emotion you want the audience to take away? Thanks for watching the Wednesday Watch. Hopefully you can apply some of these concepts in your next project.